After just signing his WWE contract, Gable Steveson has been drafted to Raw. No NXT 2.0 for him. We're going to talk about that and the rest of the draft with our special guest in just a second. So stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra, the place where we talk about black wrestling. I am your host, A Dazzle, of course, and alongside my tag team partner, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. And of course, we are joined by a special guest, one of my favorite guys on the planet. It is Gerard Bonner from the Faction Show. Gerard, how are you doing, my guy?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you guys?
Brilliant, man. It's October.
Yes.
So we're celebrating Black history here in the UK.
Nice.
Hopefully we get to talk about Black British people and not just about slavery and Martin Luther King.
Hello. We just started being able to do that. So yeah, I feel your pain.
We're slowly coming along.
Yes.
So yeah, man. As some people will probably see already on my page, I've started my little celebration of Black wrestlers, Black British wrestlers, being very specific. And hopefully I can keep that going throughout the month of October.
Absolutely.
It's a very difficult thing to do because it takes a lot of time, but it's okay.
Yes.
I'm here for it. Let's go. So yeah, Gerard, man, it's great to have you with us. We'll be talking today about the draft, of course. We'll get into that in a second. We're also going to be talking about happenings on AEW. Leo Rush has now signed for AEW. Jade Cargill is making some moves. Are things changing? We'll get into it. And of course, we will be revealing the newest list, the Jet Power 10, the top 10 of last month, the top 10 Black wrestlers of September. Right. So let's get into our first thing. This draft. My dear friend Mix mentioned the probably the biggest surprise. It wasn't really made a massive thing. It was just announced and that was the end of it. But when we stop and think about it, the biggest surprise that we had in the draft came yesterday. Obviously, the draft started on Friday on Friday Night SmackDown, but yesterday on Monday Night Raw, it was announced. I think it was during the third round, and just randomly thrown in there in the third announcement that Gable Steveson, the Olympic gold medalist, just signed with WWE about 3 weeks ago, I believe it was.
Yes.
And with his signing, here's the thing. With this contract that he has, it's very different to anything that anyone else has ever had before. He is still a college wrestler, amateur wrestler, and will continue to compete for, I think it's the University of Minnesota.
Yes.
It's quite famous because that's where Brock Lesnar came from. That's also where Shelton Benjamin came from.
That's right.
And Brock Lesnar is one of his mentors, apparently. So big things are coming his way. But it was announced yesterday for some strange reason. I see Max shaking his head because I'm doing the same thing as well. That he has been drafted to Monday Night Raw. Someone else take over because I don't even know what to say, how this works, where is this going, what does it even mean? Gerard, I'm gonna throw you in the deep end on this one. What do you think this one is?
Well, it's very clear that they have very high hopes for Gable Steveson. Very high hopes. They've done some things for him that they've not done for anybody else. Like they literally have a private wrestling scenario for him to be able to train while he's there in Minnesota, still defending the NCAA Heavyweight Championship. It's very clear, I'm going to say, that they know something we don't, right? I have to think that. I mean, obviously, he has an amazing pedigree. He's done incredible things in the Olympics. We also know that amateur wrestling does not necessarily translate to what happens in the pros. And to be thrown into the deep end to Monday Night Raw, we likely won't see him in the ring for probably another year, I'm guessing, because he still has to graduate. And as part of that contract, they said he might appear on Raw. But yikes. Personally, if I'm one of those guys who's been now relegated to NXT 2.0, I'm in my feelings right now. I'm in my feelings real bad because you're right. They mentioned him, and they mentioned him in round 6 at the very end. At the very, very end. And so, honestly, I didn't even think he'd be eligible for the draft. I didn't think he was in the I didn't think that he's in the pool at all.
Right.
So it was shocking to me. It said that they think a whole lot about him. What I'm interested in is how he got the call up over some of the other folks that have been in NXT, who perhaps were way more deserving of this. I mean, we've not seen him do, and remember, Raw is the longest running show for WWE ever.
Of course.
I don't know about this.
Max, you're itching to say something. I can see in your face.
It's all over his face.
I mean, like, when I watched this and I saw Gable Steveson, I was like, what? Like, okay, well, you can only help but think this is an Kurt Angle-esque kind of situation. Like someone that just comes in, they think, they've got obviously a wrestling background, is to teach them the sports entertainment side of things, and you can just rocket them to the top effectively. However, now that you guys have spoken about it a bit more, he's still in university, he's still under another contract. And I even remember when the details came out that he had signed to WWE, that there was still going to be some, I think there was like a third party agency that will still like obtain some rights from this, that, and the other. And I don't know, maybe Gerard, you could speak on that more in a second, but now I can't help but think this is just some gimmick. Like, what's the meaning behind this now? Like, I don't even know.
It's a crazy one. I kind of see it in a very similar way. Like, he'll make appearances every now and again and stuff like that, and obviously you won't see him in the ring. You may take a bump or two. You may take someone out. I don't know. Who knows? But as we know, for those that are a little bit more knowledgeable on what's going on, he still has to graduate. He still has to do defend his championship in amateur wrestling as well. What's interesting as well is that obviously just about 2 weeks before his announcement of him signing, his brother also signed. Also, someone who's very accomplished, and he is in NXT 2.0. We haven't seen him yet. Right. I think I've seen a couple of photos of him, with his new gear and these kind of things. So they're readying him for something. I always thought we'd have the brothers doing their thing on NXT maybe first, or even if it was on Raw, they'd be doing it together for a little while or something like that.
Right.
Doesn't seem the case. I'm now actually worried for his brother already. It's like there's Scott and Rick's already down there. Like, Scott Steiner's there, Rick Steiner's over here already. Like, what's going on? I'm not completely sure.
Let's put this into perspective too, because as I thought about this is what's scary. Before there was NXT, there was OVW, of course. Right. And a certain Brock Lesnar, before he made his way to Raw, found himself in OVW. The idea that Gable Steveson is going to bypass what Brock Lesnar did and come straight to Raw. If Brock Lesnar found his way in OVW and went through developmental with Shelton Benjamin, with Batista, with all of these guys, who in the world is Gable Steveson to be able to bypass the path that Brock Lesnar took?
I'll tell you who he is: an Olympic gold medalist. That is the end of it.
But here's, with that, I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from his skill. What I think becomes problematic here is the idea of process for WWE.
Of course.
Why, so for instance, you have a Gable Steveson who's going to come straight to Raw and bypass a second generation superstar like Rick Steiner's son, right? Or you have some folks who are independent wrestlers who are even second generation wrestlers. There's a guy there named Brooks Jensen. He is Ben Buchanan. That's Bull Buchanan's son, who spent some time in Southern Honor Wrestling. Got to throw that out there. So I know what the kid can do. And so for me, I'm still sitting back here going, okay, you have second generation superstars that aren't getting called up. You have people who have wrestling in their blood who aren't getting called up. And then you have, yes, he's an Olympic gold medalist, but you've established a process for everybody that you said is coming in WWE. And this guy, because he can do a backflip at the Olympics, gets to turn around and bypass to me, Brock Lesnar, the same Brock Lesnar who ended the Undertaker's streak, this same Brock Lesnar who beat The Rock and became the youngest WWE champion at the time. This guy gets to bypass him. I need to see some proof that he's worthy of this. Listen, and a backflip and a gold medal isn't enough for me. Sorry.
A backflip and a gold medal. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
I'm just saying.
But you know what? Jeez. You raised some amazing points, especially when we know they have effectively conjured up this whole NXT 2.0 thing because they want it to go back to the grassroots and academy sort of thing and trained into becoming the sports entertainer that, you know, Vince wants at WrestleMania one day. So for you to bring in the raw athletic talent that you said you're going to be getting now, but you just shoot him to the top, basically. There is something there. There's something going on, like you said.
You know, go back to 96, 97, 98 when they tried the same thing with Mark Henry. Right? They brought Mark Henry in, signed him to a 20-year deal, just knew, okay, here's an Olympic guy who's a great power lifter, world champion, and he had to be sent back to OVW.
Exactly.
You had the Big Show come in. He had to be sent back to OVW. Like, I just think there is something scary when you bypass your own process like this. And that makes me nervous.
For me, the other one as well, we saw one time it kind of worked out. And now I may have missed something, but did Kurt Angle go straight into it as well?
Angle did go straight into it. But again, Angle, you know, was courted by ECW for a while, certainly did get some training, but, you know, he didn't spend any time in an OVW or anything like that. And I also, and I'm trying to remember, I think the whole OVW situation started coming into play after Angle. So I don't know that there was an OVW for Angle to really go to per se.
I think there was like a Deep South or something like that. There was other little ones.
Some little small things, but it wasn't
official. It wasn't in the same way with the same
not at all.
mentality and all the rest of it. The other one that kind of, for me, is kind of very similar. And some may say it worked out. Personally, I don't think it did at all. Ronda Rousey.
Well, so Rousey, where Rousey is different is Rousey was active in professional combat sports.
Very true. Very true.
That's very different than coming in from amateur wrestling. It's totally different set of rules, totally different approach. And for her, it was a 1-year deal. And then she went off to go have a baby and live happily ever after, right? This guy has a multi-year deal. They have, and again, I would expect a Ronda Rousey coming from MMA to get shot up to this situation. She's Ronda Rousey. But I mean, Lord, we have so many other, remember 2 years ago, our great Kofi Kingston lost the WWE Championship in 8 seconds so Brock Lesnar could have a match with Kane, right? Kane Hernandez or whatever his name is. Velasquez, sorry. And and he had one match.
Right.
Like,
and it was the worst thing.
It was the worst.
Oh, my word.
So I just think, again, there's something to be said for process. There are rare exceptions. We're saying, the question is Steveson on an Angle-like level?
Right.
I don't know. And we haven't seen anything to tell us one way or the other. So I don't know. But I'm also curious, did you guys notice they haven't necessarily come to terms with the young lady who was also interested, the Olympic female?
Tamara.
Tamara Mensah. Like, I'm curious as to what's with that, because to me, that's more interesting because, again, I think she has less of we don't have Olympic females in the business. We've seen the Olympic male before. That would be different. But who am I?
Just on that, I never believed that would ever come to something anyway. And I might obviously still be wrong. But with the Gable Steveson thing, this guy was pictured with Paul Heyman a lot.
Right.
Like there was always something in the wind before, you know, there was announced that they were going to sign. He was in NXT takeovers in the crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the Tamara stuff, I always did feel it was just a bit of lip service, but that could still, I guess, turn into something.
Looking at the rest of the draft and people who have moved and, you know, changed brands, you know, specifically, we've seen Bianca Belair go from SmackDown to Raw, of course. Also, Apollo Crews has gone from SmackDown to Raw. Not many other major changes for us. Of course, Hit Row have jumped from NXT to SmackDown. For either of you two, what is the most exciting switch when it comes to our black wrestlers? Of course, as well, Ricochet has gone from Raw to SmackDown. That's an interesting one. Which one for you is getting your taste buds and your mouth watering? Is there one of them that like that?
Mex?
Like I was very, very intrigued when Bianca Belair moved over to Raw, because at that time we didn't know what was happening with Becky. So I immediately start fantasy booking stuff in my head. I said, well, there's still some weeks until these things becomes active, like they said, the draft becomes active. And I thought, and I thought, well, she must be taking the belt off Charlotte then. Becky stays on SmackDown. Charlotte will drop her belt to Bianca, and then we'll go from there. Hasn't quite played out that way. But yeah, for me, that was probably one of the more intriguing ones that, you know, I think even still from what we saw from her on Monday Night Raw this past week, just, you know, fitting like a glove, like no change, back to business as always. So she's brilliant right now.
Gerard.
Yeah, certainly the Bianca piece is huge. And I'd just like to point out that Bianca has fought 3 of the 4 horsewomen in the last 8 days. Last 8 days. That's incredible. So she's an absolute star. And you're right. She fit in and she's proven that she's a star wherever she goes. I'm most intrigued by Hit Row coming to SmackDown.
Okay.
I'm intrigued by that because number one, they all got to come as a faction, which is completely different for what WWE is doing. If they allow them to still be them, this gets interesting. And again, kind of the weird part is you have a variety of experience. Of course, the most experience with being Swerve, the least experience being Top Dollar and B-Fab. But as a faction, they get to present something that's different than what's on SmackDown right now. There's not a faction that has a woman in it, for one. And then, again, the variety of what they bring to the table has a chance to be really exciting. And considering how star-heavy SmackDown is, I think that says a lot about them. So that was the one that was most intriguing to me.
For me, the one I'm excited about, there's those two, definitely. But I think for me, Apollo Crews now back on Raw is going to be interesting. I've got a feeling it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there are more people for him to face. We've got the US title picture, which we kind of needed a shake up because I'm through with Priest, Hardy, and Sheamus every week.
Yes, and thankfully, Sheamus and Hardy are off to SmackDown, so we can finally have room for some new things. Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. Another question. With Hit Row coming up from NXT to SmackDown, do you think that the movers from NXT to the main roster are interesting? Because we've got Hit Row, Ridge Holland has come up. I think Xia Li has come up. I don't know who else there is. I know Aaliyah did a while ago, but has never,
wasn't announced,
done anything yet. And I think she's moved.
Yeah, she's supposed to be going to SmackDown.
I'm like,
I think that's why the Hit Row one's a bit interesting, because even just on a surface level, Ridge Holland was in something. That little British gang or whatever they want to be, Peaky Blinders in NXT. They picked him up and took him. Xia Li was
Yes.
again part of Tian Sha.
Yes.
They picked her up and moved her. Yet Hit Row have all gone together, sort of thing. And obviously,
And
it is
even Aaliyah was part of the
Robert Stone
the
brand.
Robert Stone brand, exactly. So they've picked apart people that could probably be, and I don't want to use the term like good hands, in certain places or mid card or work their way up. But Hit Row, they surely must have a plan to push them or do something with them as a foursome on the main roster.
It's interesting. They moved the Street Profits over to Raw, which obviously, they keep couples together and stuff, which I can appreciate. All the couples are together. But what that does is that does leave room on SmackDown for a more urban African-American presentation, which Hit Row absolutely has. You balance that off with what the New Day is doing, and I think you have a really good situation. And again, Hit Row was getting very popular in NXT, even before the 2.0 thing happened. So my concern about Hit Row is, did you watch that match with B-Fab last week?
Yeah.
Scary. Scary.
Green
very green. And it said to me, this is the new NXT. So I was very surprised that she would get called up amid all things Hit Row. Because if you think about that women's division on SmackDown, which is a strong women's division, you add an Xia Li, who I think is great, Shayna Baszler, who is starting to get her edge back, Charlotte Flair as the kingpin. It's gonna be a good minute before we see B-Fab in a match. So
this is the thing, though. I think maybe after the two matches they might have seen of B-Fab in NXT 2.0, they may just be thinking, all right, manager.
Yes.
Keep
and
her
that
with them,
works.
Manager.
That works. Because she adds something different that I think isn't currently on SmackDown, but not in the ring. I don't think she'll fit in the SmackDown women's division right now.
Mex, can you bring up SCW's comment, not his last one, but the one before, where he says, not a move, but Naomi staying on SmackDown when it feels that side is missing a top babyface right now. Could you see her story with Sonya being a building block to get her to the top? That's a very, very interesting point, actually. I didn't actually,
there's no top face on SmackDown now with Bianca moving.
Of course.
Interesting.
It could be. Moving away from WWE, let's turn our attentions to AEW.
Can I just say quickly, just one last thing on the draft,
Yeah.
So PW Insider have basically said, these like dirt sheets tracking everything that's going to happen beforehand.
Right.
That the Street Profits were this close to being split. Instead, the higher ups opted to split Mace and T-Bar.
And
left those guys together. That Montez Ford was actually going to move over to Raw with Bianca Belair and leave Angela Dawkins on SmackDown. So we talked about this last week. It's clearly on the radar.
Yeah,
like I said, that Montez Ford versus Roman Reigns, it was an audition.
It was. I think it's inevitable. I'm actually surprised it didn't happen in the draft, but I do still think it's inevitable. It's just now going to take longer than we thought.
The scary thing is if they do that split, bye Angelo Dawkins.
Oh, God forbid! Don't say
because here's the thing. People forget Angelo Dawkins in NXT prior to the Street Profits. You know why you forget him? Because he was forgettable. That's why. So I don't know. To me, Montez Ford is clearly the guy with the personality. He's got the hops. He's got all of the tools to be an incredible solo star. I don't know if Dawkins is ready for that. But I think there's still some juice left in the Street Profits, which is why they're still together. It's not time to break them up yet, but when they do, bye Angelo Dawkins. Sorry.
And it's difficult, because we say on this show, we've said it so many times on this show, we've seen the progress that Angelo Dawkins has made in order to make sure he's not forgotten when that eventual split happens.
Yes.
But at the same time, I do believe it's still the case. It's gonna be. I don't know. I don't know how Angelo Dawkins can make himself relevant
Yeah.
when that split happened. And it's so difficult to say, but yeah.
That is hard to say.
That's the case. That's the case.
Yeah.
But let's head over to AEW real quick. Speaking of signings, of course, now we see Lio Rush has decided to come out of retirement for the 565th time, and is now officially signed to AEW. Gerard, what do you think is going on here? What is going on in this young boy's head?
Well, I think you just nailed it. He's really young. And so because he's young, sometimes when you think, when you have an injury, you think it's over. He's called it quits because of injury. He's called it quits because of mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's born to be a wrestler. He's too good to not be a wrestler. And I know he wants to dibble and dabble in hip hop and all of these other things. But dude, go ahead, run this whole wrestling thing out, because the hip hop piece isn't working for you. Okay. It's not. Let's just, and I don't want him to come for me, but I'm just saying now, I'm sure he will. The world of wrestling is your oyster. And I was there when he debuted at Double or Nothing. And we all were just like, yo, this is incredible. This makes a lot of sense. And then it was over. AEW is the perfect fit for him. He has worked really, really well in MLW. He's done some cool things in New Japan. But this whole AEW thing, the potential matches that this guy could have could be the thing that puts him in the stratosphere that he didn't get when he was in WWE.
Right.
So I hope that he is confident and comfortable, because especially now with the role that AEW is on, the momentum that they have, now's the right time for Lio Rush. Now,
we've spoken so many times about the lack of diversity at the top end of this AEW card and the roster. And we had talks about, okay, so who's ready and who is there that's not in WWE now that could be that black star to go straight to the top. And to be honest, there were only two people, Jonathan Gresham and Lio Rush. Lio Rush is there now, and we're all salivating at the mouth at the prospect of Lio Rush versus Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship. Is that if that was to happen first, is that too quick, or is that something we build to?
We absolutely need to build to that. Sorry, Max, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's too soon. I'm not a fan of putting people that should be winning titles in title matches for the sake of it. It's a good showing, and then they lose. I don't care about good showing. Like, I want to be able to, 3 to 6 months down the line, watch this match, Sammy Guevara and Lio Rush, and think, right, Lio Rush has been built up correctly, and there is a very good chance he could leave here today with the title. The first defense is against Lio Rush, and we know it's just going to be a showcase match. I'm not into that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think? Oh, actually, no. Here's the question: what do you think is his first feud or his first storyline? Where does Lio Rush go from here? And what is this whole gimmick that he's got? Like, I kind of get it.
I don't. Is man a financial advisor? Is he an analyst? Is he a trader? Is he cryptocurrency guy on Instagram trying to get you to? I don't know what he does, but because it's Lio Rush, I'm somewhat believe he can spin it into something.
Right.
I think what I would like to see is him to take this financial gimmick and take Private Party out of the HFO.
Please.
If he could be their mouthpiece, and those three could do something pretty entertaining to each other, and even obviously those guys are with Matt Hardy to learn the tag team wrestling stuff under Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy and these guys can still have that struggle for a while on screen, still do what they need to do in the back in terms of learning and training and stuff like that. But I just feel like for Private Party, they've outgrown HFO. The HFO is just a bit of a clunky mess, and they've kind of sunken into it. Let them be rescued somewhat. Let this guy, with his all his financial knowledge, buy them out of their contracts, bring them over to do whatever he's doing, be their mouthpiece as well, because he's very good at that. We saw that with the Lashley stuff back in WWE. I think that's the one way I can think that could save this character, because otherwise I don't know what the hell this character is.
No, I happen to agree with you. It is scary to think that Private Party is the same tag team that beat the Young Bucks in the opening round of the AEW tag team title tournament, right? Like, it's crazy. So they do need rescuing, and I think Lio Rush is the right guy to do it. It's kind of crazy because I can't initially think of who I would want to see him fighting with at this particular point. And that's just because there are so many folks in AEW where something could work with them. It's just trying to figure out where he falls in there.
Right.
But I definitely think, I love that idea because, again, him and Private Party together makes sense on a lot of levels. It does make sense. And then it still gives Lio Rush the opportunity to do some things in the ring and not just be a mouthpiece. And so with that, I think that makes sense. There does need to be a road to the TNT title for him because I think that totally makes sense. And again, him and Sammy, good Lord, sign me up and take my money. Okay. So I think it would just be incredible. So that's what I hope that they do with him because I mean, there are too many other things that are happening in AEW right now that have our interest that he's got to get involved in something that would make us turn our head.
Yeah,
or at least if they're gonna launch these trios titles, which they've been saying for years on end now, like that could be another something for Lio Rush and the Private Party if that comes to fruition.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. The other thing that sounds good in AEW, there's not a lot, but the other thing that sounds good in AEW is
wow.
This guy is gonna get us all in trouble one day.
Listen, dude. In the world.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna guess you don't like AEW.
I have an agenda. Not that AEW is doing bad things, but I have my own agenda, as you all know. But anyway, moving on. The other thing that sounds good in AEW is Jade Cargill is now #1 contender for the AEW Women's Championship and will face Britt Baker very soon. And she defeated Thunder Rosa and Nyla Rose in what I think was a good triple threat match. It got heated. Weapons were used. AEW love to do that, and I think they kind of do it correct when it comes to the women in choosing when to do it, how they do it as well. So Jade Cargill sits on top. What happens next?
She ain't winning.
Well. Here again is an interesting thing, and this is what I think is the challenge right now of AEW's women's division. It's still young, and with it being young, there are certain things you just can't fight. And one of the things you can't fight is time. Right. One of the real challenges they have had because they have such a young women's roster. When I say young, I'm referencing wrestling experience, is you end up giving people championship opportunities too soon. I think back to a couple of months ago when Ty Conti got a title shot and she was, a couple of months fresh out of NXT and, she was fighting either Hikaru Shida or Shida. And it was just kind of like, I'm not sure that you really have a chance in this scenario. Now I love what they're doing with Jade. I love the buildup that she's getting. And it is ironic, since we're talking about diversity and the African-American piece, that, of all things, we have an African-American woman being dominant in AEW. I think that's really, really cool. I think the challenge to this is you don't want to give us this match too soon. Let Jade not just be the dominating female, but let her have a great set of matches under her belt. I hate to say this, but I'm going to. I don't count matches that happen on Dark. I just don't. Nope. And I appreciate their new setup at Universal Studios, and that's really cool. But we understand what Dark is. Dark is an opportunity to get to Dynamite. That doesn't qualify you to get a championship match. So I think Jade had an amazing match on Rampage. I think it was one of her best matches yet. But let's still remember, Jade Cargill hasn't been an active competitor for a solid year yet. Nope. It is too soon to give her a title match. I think let her go through some more competitors. Quite frankly, I'd like to see her and Thunder Rosa do something for a bit. You know, you've got a few other folks that are there that would make for interesting one-on-one battles before she gets to Britt Baker. Because here's my thought. If Ruby Soho didn't beat Britt Baker and Ruby came in with all of this momentum, Britt's not losing for a while. And I don't want to see Jade as another notch on the belt of Britt Baker. Jade is too good for that.
Yep. I think what you mentioned there, Ruby Soho, is very similar to what Mix mentioned earlier, with people coming in straight away who you feel are good enough to be champions, but then get a title shot straight away. You know what the outcome's going to be. And it kind of kills that person's momentum, that person's character, and all the rest of it as well. In terms of Jade, I definitely think it's too early. And for me, it has nothing to do with what 80% of Twitter is saying in terms of her being green. I don't think, for me, it's not about how long she hasn't been wrestling for. It's not about how much she doesn't know. It's more so the simple fact of not building her towards this championship. Yes, we know that she's a dominant figure. Yes, they're establishing that, and that's great. But at the same time, we're going into this match knowing what the outcome is going to be, and that's the problem. And it happens way too often for me in AEW. With quite a few of the championships that are, championship matches, most of Miro's defenses, it was obvious what was going to happen. Dante Martin, Del Sol.
Fuego
del Sol, that's the one. And a few others. Even when Darby Allin was champion, some of the times you were like, okay, we know what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that for me is the issue with AEW. But with Jade, yes, happy for her. Yes, it's going to be great. But at the same time, she's not going to win. So then it kind of kills everything that she's done before. I've seen this happen before with a guy called what's his name again? Scorpio Sky.
Yeah. So wait, this leads me to an interesting question though. Do you think that this is what could be problematic with their ranking system?
Oh, I think their ranking system is a massive problem, and I had a solution to the problem. And for me, I think dark matches should, even if they're going to keep it, either get rid of it altogether, or if they keep it, dark matches should be like 1 point, whereas dynamite matches should be like 2. That way, you then establish a differentiation then between people that win often on dark and then to people that are on dynamite often as well. Because if Scorpio Sky is winning 7 matches on dark, and then someone wins 2 on dynamite, is Scorpio Sky above that person who's on dynamite every week?
Right.
But this is the thing, because it's like within themselves, they know they're ranking the dark wins less. Like the Gun Club that are undefeated, but they haven't got no title shot yet. They're not even nowhere near Dynamite. I'm looking at the rankings now. Thunder Rosa is first actually with 29 wins, 2 losses. Jade is second with 14 wins and no losses. I think this is for this year. I think she got some losses, some wins last year. So the rankings does make things a bit problematic. I think for the large part, they've dealt with it well, apart from the fact that dark matches seem to just push everyone up. And we always talked about when Britt Baker was on her road to the championship, she even made like a joke with Tony Schiavone on TV. Okay, like, I'm just gonna go back down to dark and win some matches before I challenge for the title, which is funny because it kind of shows there's a hole in this system somehow. But with Jade, in my personal opinion, I think in terms of she's not ready. We all know she's not quite ready just yet as a competitor. She's getting better with every outing, but I need to see her more in terms of a character let loose. Like Britt Baker, when she was brought into AEW, was very much, this face. Everyone loves Britt Baker. Still, she had experience beforehand, but still, somewhat inexperienced. And they effectively probably looked around the roster, who's the most experienced person here that, with all due respect, can speak English fluently. And they put all their chips on Britt Baker. And the girl went crazy. Pandemic era was hers. I'm sorry. She just on the mic every day and just And I think, same that we mentioned again, Jade made her debut that way. She took the mic and jumped into a segment with Cody, and we haven't quite seen her have that kind of free reign on her character since. Everything's been coached and managed backstage promos with this smart mark dude. Like, just let her loose with a mic. It might go wrong, who knows, but it might go wonderfully right. And that will help to build towards the character. People want to see her more and make her more believable, even if they are going to throw out that Britt Baker versus Jade match. It might be a bit more believable, the outcome.
So here's what's interesting. Speaking of Jade, we remember that promo that she did with Cody, which was, granted, it was her first time, so she probably shouldn't have been thrown to the wolves that way. But I wonder, when you look at a Jade and this reference you'll get, she is kind of our China, if that makes sense. That domineering figure with the incredible look, incredible power, who doesn't have to talk. Yeah, and the strength for her is, because I will tell you now, I love Jade, but I am weary of her dropping the B word all the time. To me, like Jade, so the best thing you can say as an aggressive person is the B word. So to me, I understand why she has somebody who is talking for her to articulate certain things, and then she punctuates it at the end. But I think for her, that part has to be developed a bit more, because think about it. If you're going to be the women's champion, you're representing the women's division for the company. You're the female face of the company. And you have to be able to go and do interviews, etc. And I'm not saying she can't do interviews or anything like that. But if you're going to get our buy-in because of your charisma, then you got to be able to say more than the B word. And so I need her to be able to grow in that area. And then we'll be ready for her. Because I'd love to see her as champion. And I think she will be champion one day. I got no doubt about that. She's the right person for it. But I think there's still development that has to happen. And if they pull the trigger on this too soon, they could regret it. They could.
The only thing is, with everything you're saying, that's correct. She could probably just be the intimidating character in the back. But I don't feel like Smart Mark is doing that. Like, everything he's saying, the Jade brand and profits are up and this, that, and the other, while she's just standing there on complete crud, looking like she's ready to kill somebody. Does she care about the business side of her, her brand? Like, I just feel like it's
now, what would be slick would be for this to lead into her ultimately getting tired of him and then saying, I don't need somebody to speak for me. I can speak for myself. And then, at that point, she can shave him off and then, make a beeline. Because I don't think he's doing anything for her. I really don't.
Not at all.
I don't. So I think it'd be something that would make sense if she breaks out. Because, again, she's the one who looks super tough. Like, I don't need anybody to represent me. I can do this myself.
And what's interesting is about 5, maybe 6 weeks before Mark showed his face, every week there was a promo with Jade saying, I don't need a manager.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
What happened there?
There we go.
You're exactly right.
Right. But moving on, we've got the last 15 minutes of the show to go. And of course, the most important part of the show at the start of the month is the revealing of the Jet Power 10. The Black Power ranking in professional wrestling. I'm going to kick off right away with this one. It's actually been a very interesting month. There are so many people that kind of just about missed out on this list and all the rest of it. I'm not going to name them all. There's a few, but the lower half of this list was difficult. Trust me. It was very difficult to leave people out. But I'm going to kick off straight away with number 10 is Lee Moriarty.
Yes.
Lee Moriarty jumps in at number 10. He was ranked as number 47 on the PWI 500 list. The rankings of this PWI 500 is going to have a massive influence on this month's list as well. So he was ranked number 47 above Seth Rollins, which is crazy. I
That
just not
is
saying
nuts.
that
Yeah,
above Seth Rollins.
that's
That's
nuts.
crazy.
Mhm.
And of course, he was signed to AEW as well this month after a match on Dark. It kind of happened impromptu. No one expected it, and that in itself is a major thing. I'm going to jump straight to number 9. Number 9 is Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs had a very interesting 2 weeks. He dismantled CM Punk through the table that didn't smash, but you know it was still enough of a talking point. And for me, the reason why I've put or the reason why Will Hobbs goes above Lee Moriarty this month is more so to do with the fact of the amount of talk that then happened on Twitter, on social media, and all the rest of it in the build-up to his match with CM Punk, in us being excited about what could happen and what it's going to mean. And yes, we knew what the outcome of the match was going to be, but at the same time, again, it reinvigorated our excitement for what AEW can do or will do with Will Hobbs eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually. We just talked about her. Number 8 is Jade Cargill. She is now the AEW Women's Championship #1 contender. So that is Jade Cargill at number 8. At number 7 is Rich Swan. Rich Swan kind of just sneaks in there simply because of his high ranking on that PWI 500. He was the second highest black wrestler on the list, came in at number 10 overall, meaning that we had 2 people or 2 black wrestlers in the top 10 for the first time since 1992, I believe it was, when The Rock and Booker T were both on it in the same year, which is crazy to think.
Crazy.
Mad. Number 6 is Jonathan Gresham, another one who ranked quite highly on that PWI 500. He came in at number 20. Of course, he had that whole thing with the ROH Pure tournament, the championship, and everything. He's recently lost it, but at the same time, the crazy thing is, he then recruited the guy that he lost it to the foundation.
Yeah,
that's mad. That's mad.
Brilliant.
And he's now actually announced himself as part of the world title contention. He's saying now, this is me.
Honor, yeah.
This is what I'm going for. Ring of Honor World Championship. That's all I'm about now. And also, you know that he had a much talked about match with Minoru Suzuki as well. Suzuki is going on this US tour right now. You know what I mean? And everyone's following this like it's crazy, some of the matches that he's having. And also just to point out, Jonathan Gresham actually is going to be in the UK this weekend, facing Chris Ridgway, which should, if anyone knows about Chris Ridgway, that should be a fantastic match. I'm trying to go, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
Wow. Right.
Now, let's get into this top 5. Obviously, we'll talk about these guys in just a little bit more detail. Someone that we've mentioned already is Montez Ford, creeps in at number 5. Now, I know usually with this list, it's about wins and losses, championships, and all the rest of it. And Montez Ford hasn't won any championships. He's lost a few matches. But those matches one was for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Even with broken ribs, he came very close. Very close, twice, very close to win those championships. And also as well, the person who gave him those broken ribs was the tribal chief himself, Roman Reigns. We've already said the match that he had was phenomenal, and we saw it as more like an audition for, you know, the Montez Ford solo career. Mex, we mentioned it, you know, a little bit already, but what do you think is the possibilities for Montez Ford now on Raw?
I mean, it's very hard to say because they've already, WWE don't seem to care about tag teams, and these guys have already won the tag titles, so it may not be necessarily a rush to put it back on them. I'm expecting Randy Orton and Riddle to drop those titles relatively soon, probably by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if these guys pick it up maybe on the road to WrestleMania somewhere. That could be a nice little program for the Street Profits again. But it just seems that, you know, these guys have accomplished everything. NXT, Raw, SmackDown Tag Team Champions. If anything, now it's probably more in terms of building them as individuals still within the tag team, so that when this eventual split that nearly just happened does happen, like all parties are prepared for it, sort of thing.
Right.
And there's probably some type of story that caused it, or whatever the case is, if it's going to be a typical split and not like a draft split. But the guy's fantastic. I saw him in London perform a couple of weeks ago at the WWE Live tour. Athletic ability off the chart. Seeing it in real life is just mad. It's actually mad. So yeah, he deserves it. He's had a good month.
Yeah, man, for sure. He's definitely most talked about. You know, for a few of us. I think it's interesting though that we're already talking about the Street Profits doing so much, NXT, SmackDown, Raw, but yet we've still seen the New Day with 11 reigns. Is there a possibility of that happening with the Street Profits, or are the New Day just in a very completely different stratosphere when it comes to being able to, you know, I guess, dictate what they do?
You know, I think when you sell a lot of merch, you get the opportunity to pretty much do what you want. And if we think about it, the New Day has lasted longer than the original Freebirds. They've lasted longer than the Four Horsemen. They've lasted longer than the NWO. I mean, they're one of the longest tandems, factions ever. And even when they try to split them up, you know, and send Big E one place and the other two somewhere else, these guys are still winning championships. You know, they're still going to be successful. That's because they have great personal chemistry and they have fought for who they are. I can't say as of yet, it may be too soon to say that about the Street Profits if they had that kind of chemistry. I do think for them to really be able to accomplish the kind of greatness that they have the potential to, they've got to win some more tag titles. So, you know, this run that has to happen has to result in them winning a tag championship at some point before there's another split.
Very true, very true.
Now, if they don't, I think that could be used to lead to the split. And God forbid if this ends up a split where it's Dawkins versus Ford, we already know what's going to happen.
It's the crucifixion.
I mean, it is. Now, Dawkins will probably win a couple of matches because he'll end up being the heel in this. He'll end up being able to say, you always got the shine and I didn't. I did the legwork and you did the stuff to get the pin. I was the one that was there and you were flaunting on the gram with your superstar wife. Like, he could do all of that and it would work. But at some point at the end, Montez is going to hit a great promo. Then he's going to turn around and hit some spectacular moves. And, you know, that'll be that. And he'll be off to superstardom like Shawn Michaels and like so many others who were locked in those tag teams. So it's, I will say this, Dawkins will have to do something of incredible significance for us to change our minds.
It hurts. It hurts.
It does.
And speaking
of, were you going to put Dawkins in there? Were you going to put Dawkins in there against Roman? No. Exactly.
It's the truth.
I rest my case.
Oh Lord!
And they did it when Dawkins was at a wedding. Like, that's grimy. That's grimy. He wasn't even in the building.
It's true.
See if Dawkins goes to another wedding now.
Moving on. I don't need to. I don't need. I don't.
Dawkins ain't leaving Montez's site.
He ain't leaving. Nope.
Follow him to toilet and everything.
You gonna cut a promo? I'm there. Yep. Yeah. Shoot.
Oh man. Oh wow. So the person who will have something to say about that is the person number 4 in the list, is Bianca Bella. If she sees Dawkins too often, she'll say something. The Bianca Belair, of course, is the former SmackDown Women's Champion, but of course she earned her spot, which she didn't have to earn, but earned her spot as the #1 contender and still within the title picture, even though she lost to she beat Becky Lynch by disqualification because Sasha Banks came in, of course, just moments before she was about to regain that championship. But the whole build up to her and Becky's match, the match itself, what's happened since, for me, actually, has possibly been the best thing that she's done since winning the Rumble. You know, obviously, we know that the match that she had with Sasha Banks was amazing. The match itself was great. The build-up wasn't so great. Her program with Bayley, matches were good. Build-up again wasn't so great. Probably lasted too long. This last few weeks has possibly been the best thing that she has done. Even her match with Charlotte Flair yesterday was great. Mex, do you see her winning another title anytime soon? I mean, to be fair, this whole thing with the championships at the moment, with the women's championships, is very confusing. So where do you see this going with Bianca and Crown Jewel and these championships?
I mean, now with the draft, we know Becky's going to be on Raw, and you know, Bianca's going to be on Raw. I think it's fair to say she's probably the next Raw Women's Champion. Whenever Becky is to drop that title, Bianca will surely be waiting in the wings. There's a couple of undrafted women, such as Bayley, such as Asuka, which could come in and you know make a claim to that. But she is what I'm calling the leader of the new school. The Horsemen's class are excelling. We all know their accolades, but she is just taking a ball and ran with it. You know, if we even look at, you know, comparison with Rhea Ripley, you know, they were both in the Royal Rumble, both were the last people, both made it to WrestleMania for the championship matches, both won the titles at WrestleMania. Now look where Bianca Belair is and where's Rhea Ripley. And Rhea Ripley is someone I love to bits. When I saw her smashing up guys in NXT UK, moves us to NXT, I thought, nah, they're gonna make this woman massive in the main roster. It hasn't turned out that way. I don't know why. But Bianca Belair is absolutely leading the charge, and she's mingling, you know, like Gerard said. What do you say? 8 days, 3 horsewomen. They love this girl. They love her. You know, she's definitely up there. She's comfy right
now. Moving up to number 3. Number 3 is another female, which is amazing, but not signed to AEW, not signed to WWE, but recently just signed to Ring of Honor. It is Trish Adora, who was also ranked the highest female in the PWI 500. Overall number 44, highest ranked female. When I did my little review of the PWI 500, I was like, highest ranked black female. Then I realized she was the highest ranked female altogether. I'm like, wow. Gerard, give me your take on the Afro Punk, the Pan African World Diaspora champion, Trish Adora.
You know, I think this is such a huge moment as we've been talking about this women's revolution and the like. So many people look obviously at WWE and we look at what Bianca has done, but what Trish Adora has done is nothing short of spectacular. I think people have to remember that normally with the PWI 500, they usually reserve that for men, and then they have a separate list for the women.
Correct.
So for a woman to make it on the man's list, and let's put it in perspective, she was higher than Seth Rollins. Okay.
Wow.
There's a lot to be said for what she has done, for signing with Ring of Honor, which is major. You know, she's proof that you can do this wrestling thing your way. And I am a huge fan of what Trish Adora is doing. Her connecting with Shane Taylor in Ring of Honor is a major, massive win. And so for all of us who are looking for representation, you know, you may not have paid attention to Ring of Honor because it's not on one of your major networks, but find a way to watch Ring of Honor. What they are doing and the way they are representing us is special. And so I'm excited for Trish Adora. And I just wonder how long it'll be before AEW, Impact, WWE start really seriously pursuing Trish Adora.
What's interesting with Trish Adora is, we talk about her possibly joining with Shane Taylor and Shane Taylor Promotions. For a very long time, we've been talking about wanting to see Naomi join with the Bloodline.
Yes.
But for me, this is even better. It's that times 10.
Yes.
So to see Trish Adora very, very close, it's definitely going to happen. Joining Shane Taylor Promotions, and what that can do for a career, obviously, just in ring, not only in Ring of Honor, but in general, is going to be major. It's going to be major. Moving up to number 2 is the man that stayed at number 1 for so long, but now he's lost his spot because Big E has come along. It is Bobby Lashley, still managing to hold himself up there at number 2. He was the highest ranked black wrestler on the PWI 500, coming in at number 3, which is massive. Yeah. Number 3. While we're all there discussing, Roman Reigns or Kenny Omega should have been number 1. They were basically tied. So to me, Bobby Lashley came at number 2. That's how I see it, and that is ridiculous. I find that so amazing. But with every reason, for all the right reasons as well. Longest reigning black WWE champion with 195 days as champion. The second, I think Gerard said, is the second longest in this decade.
Second longest this decade. The only one longer was Drew McIntyre, who had him by 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And of course, he's still in the title picture. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. And the Hurt Business are back.
Yeah.
There's probably a whole show that needs to be done on the return of the Hurt Business, but that's another
real talk.
Yeah.
Real talk. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm gonna skip straight to number 1. Number 1, I mentioned it already. I've said it already. I've given it away. Spoiler alert. Sorry, but it's Big E. It was obvious who it was going to be. It's Big E, the new WWE champion. Of course, he cashed in on Bobby Lashley and has defended against Bobby Lashley in a cage match, a wild cage match. We had the New Day and the Hurt Business go toe-to-toe twice in a night. It's been a crazy few weeks for Big E. The cash-in kind of, I was going to say came out of nowhere, but he told us like 24 hours before that he was going to do. But at the same time, in terms of a build, in terms of working towards it, it kind of came out of nowhere. Of course, he had the money in the bank, so we knew he was going to do it, but there was no real serious build to it at all. The cash-in on the night was great. I must say, it worked out perfectly, as best as it could have, even with the way it was done. But since then, Big E, he's been great. I'm actually quite surprised, and you can hear it in my voice. I'm actually quite surprised at how good he actually has been. Mex, what is your take on Big E's run so far?
Like Gerard just said, in terms of Trish and doing it her way, I think he's another great example of someone that's done it their way. We've all had the comments and the conversations around, serious Big E or jokey Big E, but he is finding the happy medium, if you like, of when to bring the seriousness. Even when he was in the ring with Drew last night and the crowd started chanting that he deserves it, and he started just giving us a little jig, showing us that side of him again, but he was still very much all business. He's knocking it out the park, and more than anything, he's showing us that he can, no one's ever doubted his mic ability, but we've never seen it beyond a 3-way promo with New Day, so to speak. But now he's carrying it all on himself. The guy can really talk, and with everything he says, again, you believe it. So, he's got the match with Drew coming up at Crown Jewel. I think it's fair gone conclusion that he'll probably retain. Drew goes off to SmackDown. Going to be very interesting to see how his days on Raw play out after that.
Gerard, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very happy with this reign of Big E. It's something that we all wanted. We thought it probably wouldn't happen until maybe Mania or Royal Rumble. They gave it to us now, and he's showing he's more than ready. And so to me, it's like, it's tough being the WWE champion, especially when you're the first time that you've been WWE champion. Everybody has all these expectations, but he checks off every single box. He's got the look. He's got the personality. He is believable, and we can relate to him. That's who you want as your WWE champion. And so he is proving that he can do it. He's proving that he doesn't have to have the New Day by his side to get it done. But when they show up, he's that great. He's proven he can be great in singles matches, tag matches with different partners. I mean, think about this. As champion, he's teamed with Finn Balor. He's teamed with Drew McIntyre. He's been in all sorts of unique situations, and he keeps coming out on top. I am excited for Big E to go from Bobby Lashley to Big E, which I still can't get enough of that. That was an amazing sight in and of itself. It was history, and we have not missed a beat. Let's think about this. With the exception of maybe 2 months this year, we have had a black man as a WWE champion. And that's never happened before. And it's been well deserved.
Yeah.
Very much.
So here's the flip side to that, as we were talking about AEW before, is AEW is just 2 years old. It took the WWE 50 plus years to be able to do this. I'm not saying it should take AEW that long. What I'm saying is we've waited a long time for this moment for WWE. And I am grateful that we had a Bobby Lashley, that we have a Big E, and that when we look at them, we don't just look at them as black WWE champions. We look at them as WWE champions. Right. And well deserved. So shout out to Big E. I am so proud that he is our WWE champion.
Yeah, man. And on that note, on that happy note, we are ending the show. I see the time. It's well over an hour, but it's all good. I don't care. It happens. Get over it. Folks, this has been WrstlXtra, the one place where we talk only about black wrestling. I'm your boy A Dazzle. Follow me on Instagram on Black Wrestling Alliance and on Twitter on Black Wrestling A. You can also, of course, follow my tag team partner, also known as Mix, the WrestleManiac, on Instagram, WrestleManiac UK, or Instagram is WrestleManiac.uk, and on Twitter is WrestleManiac UK.
That's right.
Also, the guy underneath me, you can follow him, Gerard Bonner, Bonafide on Instagram, or the Faction Show. Just type in Gerard Bonner, you'll find all sorts of different links to this guy who does this, that, and the next, and everything else. Southern Honor Wrestling as well. Don't forget about Southern Honor Wrestling. Gosh, we could even do a show just talking about that, We'll do that soon.
We should. That'll be fun.
Definitely. Guys, this has been WrstlXtra. I'm going to have to do some editing tomorrow morning, but it's all good. This is what we do. Folks, we'll see you later.
Take care, guys.